Alright, code wranglers, buckle up. We are diving into web development where semicolons are like commas on a strict diet and bugs are the uninvited guests. And bugs are the uninvited guests who just won't leave the party. Get ready to laugh in the face of syntax errors and dance with the curly braces. Good day, everyone, and welcome to TechXcelerate 2.0, a virtual technology event acceleration program that will provide you the in-depth knowledge and insights into the latest trends and technologies in the industry. I, Arush Karnatak, thrilled to be your host and guide you through the program. Web development serves as the linchpin of collaborative online creation, bringing developers together to build and uphold high quality websites and applications. This communal effort allows for unrestricted use, modification, and distribution of digital solutions, shaping an interconnected online environment. Ladies and gentlemen, let's dive into the power of web development and explore the technology blocks that are sometimes overlooked but have immense potential for growth and innovation. Now, without further ado, let me introduce to the amazing speaker joining us today, Mr. Jatin K Malik. Jatin, a principal software engineer at Atlassian with a rich background at Uber and Adobe, is your guide into the world of modern web development. And an experienced backend expert, Jatin is passionate about designing and crafting efficient software while continually learning new technology and tools. We are honored to have Jatin as a speaker today, and we are confident that his expertise and insights will provide valuable learnings to all attendees. I would like to request Jatin to commence this event.
Thank you so much, Arush. That was like a brilliant introduction. I think even I could not have done like that. So, hi, folks. Hi, good
Sure.
evening. Welcome to Tech Accelerate. Let me share my screen and let's get started. And Arush, a quick question. So, I will probably have
Yes,
to
sir.
ask some questions in middle from folks. So, will folks be able to unmute themselves or raise, or will they raise their hands and you will unmute them? How would that work?
So they will raise their hand, and our team will allow them to ask questions.
Awesome. Perfect. Sounds good. So,
Yes, sir.
let's see. I'll have to share window. And I'll have this. That's the problem with Teams. Just give me 1 second.
Sure, sir.
Can you guys see my screen?
Mm, not yet, sir. I guess.
Yeah, this is the problem with Teams. 1 second. Interesting. So I'm clicking on sharing. It's not working. Give me 1 second. I'll just close. I'm actually connected from Safari. Most likely that's the culprit. Let me join from Chrome. Give me 2 minutes.
Okay. Sure, sir.
Thank you. Uh,
Folks, we will resume shortly in this event.
Yeah, thank you. I did not have permission to unmute my mic. I think it's here now. Can you guys see me now?
Yes, sir, you're clearly visible.
Perfect. Yeah, now it should work. This was the problem. So let's see. Share. And my share screen should be visible. Is it visible now?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Perfect. Let me just start from the beginning. And I'll have my presenter notes on. And move this here. And let me go full screen. Perfect. Can you all see my screen? Folks, can
Yes,
you
sir,
see my
screen is
screen?
visible.
Awesome.
Yes, sir.
Let's get started. Sorry for the delays. It's not like a tech conference unless there are some issues like this. Yeah. Again, folks, welcome and welcome to my session. So I have called this session Code the Future. And the idea is that I want you to provide you guys a glimpse into the web development and software engineering. So my name is Jatin Kumar Malik, and a little bit about myself. So I like to define myself as a person that I write words that control machines to tell other machines to build fake machines that run on different machines. So this may or may not make sense for a lot of you, but some of you may get it. A lot of code that we write in production and deploy it, it doesn't get deployed on like real computers. There's not just like one computer that is running all of the code. There is a lot of containerization and virtualization that goes behind the scene. And over the last 10 years working in this field, I have like really mastered that art. And a little bit about me. So this has been my career journey, but before that, I think I would like to take just 10 seconds. So the reason I decided to actually do this session was because I am also from the same university. So I also graduated from GGS IPU in 2014. And the most funny thing is my college is not even affiliated with the IPU University anymore. So I had a rank of around 9,800 something, and that time in second counseling in September 2014, I got computer science in a college called GPMCE, Guru Prem Sukh Memorial College of Engineering. Has anyone heard of that? I'm just curious. Yeah, talking is going to be difficult. How would I see the screen? One second, let me take the screen here on the other monitor. Okay, I think Himanshi raises her hand. She probably has heard of this. That's nice. Just let me arrange the other screen. So I have a two screen setup. Okay, so yeah, this is nice. Yeah, so coming from that, it has been a really interesting journey, I think, in 10 years. And now when someone asks me like what college I'm from, it's very difficult for me to explain the whole thing. So I usually just say IP University, and it works really well. Anyways, this has been my journey. So I started my career early on with a company called Adobe, and this was not a college placement. So I don't know how is college placement in your college, but in my college it was absolutely non-existent during that time. And at most, I think we had was probably some mass recruiters like TCS, Infosys. And 2014 was a very different time for tech industry. We did not have a lot of homegrown startups. People were still building Zomatos and Swiggies and Paytms, and they were in very nascent state. And I think they started maturing over the last end of the last decade, and then the whole boom came. So early on, I was very fascinated by software. Like I have always been very fascinated by computers. So I basically used to do a lot of open source contributions. So for Adobe, there used to be a tool called Adobe Brackets. Has anyone heard of that? You can raise your hands. I think it's highly unlikely. Okay, I see Bhavansh has done that. I think now it has converted into basically, it's still there. I think now it has become open source and the Apache licensing has been done. So I was an open source contributor to this one. And I think somehow some engineering manager saw that and I got their attention. And then they sent me a message on LinkedIn that, hey, are you looking for a job? Looks like you're just graduating. And I was like, yes, definitely. And then I went to their Noida office and I gave the interview and got the job. And this is how the journey started. And I worked there for around three years. And after that, the whole startup industry was maturing. A lot of startups were coming up, growing, and then there was one startup that caught my eye, Shuttle. So you guys are pretty young, but has anyone heard of Shuttle? A raise of hand. Okay, I see. Oh, a lot of people. Awesome. That's pretty good. Let me see if I can move this to a gallery mode so I can see everyone. So, okay, that's not possible. Somehow it is arranged. Anyways, okay, yeah, now I can see a lot of hands. Yeah. So I joined there as I think one of the fifth or sixth employees in their tech team, and it was a wild ride. Has anyone used Shuttle by any chance? Quick raise of hand. Oh, some of you have. So if you would remember, there used to be like to onboard and authenticate. There used to be a feature where you would press a button and it will limit some sound from your phone, and that's how you will get authenticated. So that was built by me. I'm very proud of that. So it was like your transaction ID would be encoded into that sound signature, and then you can basically use that to authenticate. Anyways, so I wanted to work in startups because I think in Adobe, while it was an amazing company, I thought like in my initial part of my career, the learning part was a bit slow. And a startup was a wild ride. I joined Shuttle, and after that, I joined Synaptic as one of the founding engineers. It was a 7 people company that time. And the best part was that in a startup, I actually got to work on all the parts of the software, right? And this is also what I will be telling you folks also here that rather than just focusing on, you have a lot of time ahead of you. So rather than focusing on just becoming a software engineer, it would be very good if you guys can develop like a product thinking. And I learned that pretty late when I joined startups. So that writing code is not just the part of the software, right? There are a lot of other things that move around. So there is whole customer experience, user experience. There is how do you there's product management, product development. Like how do you build a product that can be sold to a customer, and there is a business around that. And that thinking is very critical because not all of you will probably be also joining jobs. Maybe some of you will be entrepreneurs and you will be doing something of your own. So that's a skill I think you guys should really focus on. We'll talk more about skills. And yeah, after Synaptic, I think I had a pretty good rough around idea about how to, product build and what is the product engineering. And then I really wanted to work on some scale, right? The only problem with startups is the scale is not there, right? You will have maybe 10,000 users, maybe you will have 1 lakh users, but that scale where you can build like a platform application where you are serving like 10 to 15 million events per day, and the QPS is as high as 500 like queries per second or transactions per second. And I think I started giving interviews and Uber came in, and Uber was one of the best decisions I could have taken. And Uber, I joined a team called Customer Obsession, and there it was very fascinating. We basically built the whole horizontal layer of customer platform, which used to cut across multiple offerings. So in India, we have very limited offerings where we have taxi, autos, and that's all. I think Uber Eats used to be there. Now it's no longer here. But in other markets, there are like Uber helicopters, Uber submarines, Uber bikes, and like so on. Uber Freight is there. And it was very interesting. I got to work on a platform which used to cut across all, and it was good experience. I worked there again for around 3 years. And after that, in September 2022, I wanted to move on, look into some new other domain. So if you look at like Shuttle and Uber were very operational intensive. I wanted to get back to the SaaS world where like there is a software application and it's less connected to the real world, right? There are no taxis or buses or things running. And the scale, again, like want more scale, right? So I joined Atlassian, and Atlassian, it has been around 1.5 years, and I work in a team called Enterprise Trust, and where we are trying to build features, which basically everything is now a subscription, right? You would have noticed like from your movies to songs to everything, like the software you use, everything is converted into a subscription. And like 10 years back, everything used to come on a CD or a setup.exe or like a binary file which you would install and then you use it. Now everything runs in your browser, whether it is your Creative Cloud, whether it's your Canva or like so on. Similarly, Atlassian is also trying to like we have moved to a cloud-based model where that rather than you deploying like Jira, Confluence, Ops, Genie, Bitbucket on your own end or your own machines, we'll do it for you, and you just pay like a $5 per month per user kind of a subscription. And yeah, so that's about it. Uh, let's move on. So what are we going to do today? Before that, any questions, any interesting questions anyone have? We'll probably take 10 seconds. So raise of hand, and I think someone will unmute you. Okay, no questions, I think.
Yeah, they can raise their hands.
Okay, I don't see any raised hands. So I'll move on. I have some slides allocated for questions. Okay, there is a question. Prateek, yes. Can I unmute you? No. Can someone unmute Pratik? Okay, yeah.
Good evening, sir.
Hey, good evening.
Sir, I wanted to ask that you got into Adobe. What were the uh, did you practice DSA and all to get into Adobe or not?
Yeah, we'll talk about this. I think that is a part of next few slides. So I think we'll get back to that question. I think
Okay,
how
okay,
you can enable opportunities. Yeah.
okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Oh, no worries. I'll move on. So next slide. So I think we're going to talk about four things. We're going to try to demystify some of the things that are around the industry, cloud, AI, and tech stacks is one of the things that a lot of engineering students likes to focus on. The second is we'll talk about building, like how you can get into building actual things. Third is mastering, how you can basically after you build something you can master around that. And the fourth is launching, right? Like how do you set yourself in a space that where you can launch your career very easily. And before that, I think just a question. I hope none of your college faculties are online. How's the placement scene now in BPIT? Is it good? Like, are your third, fourth year students, like seniors getting placed well? Anyone would like to answer? Organizers? Okay, Bhavansh or like anyone. Yeah, please unmute yourself and you can ask.
Sir, it is fine right now, but due to recession, the like placements are like going slowly and slowly.
Okay, but do you guys get product-based companies now?
Yes, we got some, but due to
Yeah.
recession, the volume of companies which are coming to the college are very low at this point of time.
I see. I see. Yeah, I think the freshers, I think, are the worst fit in that way. Like a lot of people have reduced it, and now the hiring has become. It used to be a pyramid where I think you will take a lot of people at like fresher level, and then gradually they will experience. Now it is more of a prism shape everywhere, where the focus is on increasing the middle experience, like 5 to 10 year experience, a lot, and then trimming on both the other ends, like that. Okay, but yeah, I think so. We'll talk about that. So let's move on. I see some raised hand. Do we have any questions? Bhavansh, Pratik. Okay, I think the hands went down. Bhavansh, your hand is still up. Okay, it also went down. Perfect. Okay. So first of all, I would like to hear three answers, right? This is a very interesting questions I ask everyone. Like, why do you guys want to be software developers? Who would want to, take that? And please don't say that you're doing computer science engineering, so you will have to do that. There are a lot of other things you could be doing. I have friends from polymer engineering from Delhi College of Engineering who are now building CNG kits. I think life takes you in a very different ways going on. But yeah, anyone would like to volunteer? Would love to know what motivates you to do that, pursue that. Raise a fan. Okay, I see a raise a fan from Saurabh and Pratik. So we'll first take Saurabh.
Sir, for good
Yes, Saurabh.
salaries.
Yeah. Good, but there is a lot of way to make money. Honestly, like doing a job is probably the slowest way to make money, if you will ask me now. Like you can join stock market, be the next Nikhil Kamath, and then build your own Zerodha. Who is stopping you, right? Like that guy is a billionaire. Well, Pratik.
Sir, I want to be a software developer because whenever I use a service like Google or anything, it makes me question that how it is working. So
Yeah.
I am always interested in this to know that how it is working and what are the things that took to implement it.
Awesome. That's a very, very good answer, actually. This was also one of the key motivations for me. I'm a very curious person, and as engineers, I think we'll talk about it. Developing that curiosity is very important, right? Everything you see around you in this room, wherever you are sitting, everything is built by like humans, right? Like it's not magic. Nobody came and just gave it to us. Like engineering is very fascinating, right? If you think right now, I'm sitting here talking to all of you through internet, where there are physical lines going across transatlantic. There is electricity running. Everything is a engineering marvel that way, right? Having that curiosity is a very interesting thing. That how does something work, right? And then it's a rabbit hole where we can get into in very simple words, like you give an example of Google, right? It's a search engine. And now if I ask you how does search engine works, okay, so maybe I need to first know where things are and I need to index them. How do you index them? So there is something called spiders, right? Where Google has some spiders and robots, bots, which will basically scour the internet and then try to rank it and then have some keywords stored in a way that we can very fast. It's very complicated. It's not a very simple answer, right? So having that, I think developing that curiosity is very important and it will take you far away. So moving on, so let's talk about some of the things, right? Like I was talking about internet and the whole Atlantic lines, right? We all know the history of internet. I think that old boring 11, 12th and this like ARPANET and everything. But I will still take you through a very quick timeline of it's very crazy when you think about technology. Look at the LLMs now and everything. Like 5 years back down the line, like before the line, I have so many friends who are working in AI and ML industry, and then they had no idea something like this will come and it will just blow up everything, right? Similar things are happening in internet, right? So if you see in 1960s, the birth of ARPANET happened. It was basically a service developed by US military so that they can communicate with each other. And then gradually some of the colleges like Harvard's and Stanford's, they joined together. And in the 80s, it was the birth of proper internet as you know it, where there was World Wide Web, email, the DNS domain name system, and TCP/IP protocols were discovered, which basically allowed one computer to talk to another computer in a network. And in the 90s, we saw the first wave of public internet where people were allowed to access internet. It was very tightly controlled, and we had Mosaic, which was one of the first browsers. We had HTTP, HTML, like that were developed, which allowed people to create websites and do that. 2000 was all about broadband. This I very well remember because I was in my teens. So like social media was a big thing, like whole Orkut, MySpace, then evolved to Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok as we know it. The mobiles became on-the-go internet became a thing with 2G, 3G. And then in 2010s, it was all about the cloud, right? Like everything is on cloud. You don't need old clunky servers and server rooms with you. Like someone is going to take care for that. You just pay them. Smartphones were a big thing. IoT devices, it was massive. I played so much with Arduinos, Raspberry Pis. And if you look around in the house now, my air purifier is internet connected. My TV is internet connected. I have a vacuum cleaner internet connected. Of course, I have laptop, phone. There are now fridge. There are toasters, for God's sake, which are now on the internet, right? Like it's pretty crazy. And we crossed 1 billion users. And now if you talk about 2020s, it's all about like remote, how you can basically have internet in the remotest places of India. And this you can experience, right? Like I challenge you, like go in a tier 3 city, like wherever you want to go, and you will still probably get 5G or 4G signal, and which is something that you could not have thought like again 5 to 10 years back. Because like I remember whenever we used to travel to J&K, like somewhere, and we would be like, yeah, we don't have the postpaid connection, and now prepaid would not work, and it was such a pain. And now it's not a problem at all. And we have 5G, and then we have artificial intelligence, which is pretty crazy that way, right? And I'm sure, how many of you, raise of hands, have seen this diagram? Like everyone has seen this, most likely. But we'll still see a raise of hand. It's a client server diagram. Yeah, crazy, right? I have say 13, 14, 23 hands. Everyone, I think this is in your books also. This is my complaint. I don't know now how the curriculum is, but I think when I was doing engineering, I think 10 years back, then also the OS book, we had some Dragon book, which was written in 90s, and like everything was 10 to 20 years behind. I'm sure it's better now. But a lot of people still like to think internet works like this, that there is a client, there is a server, you do a request, and it's a very oversimplified version of looking at things, right? We'll come back to this diagram. We'll just look at the quick timeline of cloud and web development also, right? And again, it started with 2000s where like we had static websites, everything was monolithic. You just deploy something and then there is a client server. And 2005 onwards, we saw like virtualization, containers. 2010 was infra as code, adoption, streaming, right? And I will share the slides, don't worry about it. So don't need to note down anything, just absorb, ask questions and have an interactive session. And 2010s, we saw streaming, right? Like fun fact, Netflix, before they used to allow streaming, they used to basically, it used to be a physical physical subscription where you basically used to pay them $10 a month. And then they would send you CDs by post to your house, like in America. And then once you see them, you can just send them back. And then eventually they realized it is not going to scale, right? Like it's easy to send postal CDs to 10,000 users, but how do you cater to 1 million users? Right? You are not like the post office or UPS. You will be then just all day just shipping packages and managing that. It's very difficult, right? And YouTube was born, and then other platforms. 2015 was a lot of focus on DevOps, CI/CD, microservices, right? Serverless computing, and a lot of focus on real time. How we can have a lot of real time things that we do. 2020 was around MLOps, automated testing, code generation came into the picture. We have performance optimization, and there is a concept of low code, right? Like where now people who don't even know how to write code can come and build websites using drag and drop tool. Scratch is pretty old. Scratch is one of the programming languages developed by MIT, which allows you to drag, drop, and build logic. It's mostly triggered toward kids to understand how the conditions work. And talking about today, we are in 2024, and it has absolutely gone crazy. We have edge computing, which we have AI, LLM, ML, hybrid cloud strategies, multi-cloud. There is quantum computing on the horizon, which will probably change the way we look at computing with binary zeros and ones. And cryptography is a thing, and then no code is a thing, where you don't now even need to write a code, right? And this is very interesting topic. I was talking to one of my senior principal engineers also. I kind of predict like in 7 to 8 years, a lot of people will not even see the code. It will basically all be just a black box. You tell it what you want, like a functional programming kind of a thing that, I want a system which will do an, let's say, asset transaction and a CRUD, create, update, delete on this database table, and it will happen automatically. And only when you need to debug or fine tune something, you will go under the hood and look at all the raw code that is there. And it's an evolution, right? Like we had assembly, we had COBOL, then C, C++, Java, Python, Ruby, and now we are just getting on the abstraction on top of it, and it will continue to happen, right? And yeah, coming back to this diagram that everyone has seen, let me show you how like a real production environment looks like. It looks something like this. Take a moment, look at this. It's absolutely crazy. And this is also not a new diagram. This diagram is basically what Amazon published before they adopted microservice architecture. This is a photo from 2009. And if you look at, it's again crazy, like look at the Netflix. I think Netflix has around 4,000 microservices. And still when you open that URL, you get the response within the 500 millisecond time. Everything gets orchestrated, gets delivered, starts streaming. You don't even notice it, right? You sit on your computer or TV, you just press the play button on your phone and it just works. And then look at Twitter, and then there is Helio, which is again like all under 500, sub 500 milliseconds. And again, having that curiosity to understand and ask these questions, that how does this work, is very important, right? Because it's very easy to be fooled around by a lot of new shiny things, jumping around from MERN stack to mean stack to whatever stacks. It doesn't really matter as long as you don't understand the basic fundamentals of how like this client server simple model can get into something like this and still work under half a second. I think that is where like a lot of key engineering lies, and thinking that you need to develop. That's a muscle, right? And let's simplify it, right? This is very complicated to understand, and this is I am one of the principal engineers, so my job is building a lot of these box and diagrams on a regular basis. Something that we call a system design coding interview. You guys would have seen, right? But if I have to simplify it as well, like this is a very simplified version of like how one system looks like, right? And I'm not going to go through this. This has a lot of interesting pieces, and each of the box you see, if you start going into the rabbit hole, you can easily spend like weeks just reading about it, just going into CDN or DNS, or how graph APIs work, or how cache works. What are the different types of cache? What are the caching strategies? Like what are the read replicas? How do you make your database more resilient? It's beautiful, and it's a rabbit hole in itself, right? And often things that look pretty simple on horizon can be pretty darn complex, right? Like we don't often think about it, right? As I gave the Netflix example, like you open your app, you click something and it just works. Right now, there is a lot of hidden complexity behind. And a very good example I like to give for that is there is a diagram for the car, right? Like car or a bike. Like I think everyone would drive something like that, right? So learning how to drive a car is very simple. You turn the ignition, the car starts. If you have a manual, you put it clutch, press clutch, put it in a gear, leave clutch, press race. Indicators is there, AC is there, music is there. It's very simple. But the amount of engineering that has gone behind, if you go under the abstraction, you open the hood, there are so many components doing so many things. But as a user, you don't often think about that. I think the real aspect of being a good engineer is to look at something very simple and understand complexity behind it. I think that's a very good muscle to develop. And look at this example, like raise of hand. How many of you here has used Slack? Anyone? Slack? It's a very popular messaging. Okay, I see a couple of hands. Yeah, it's basically like Discord, but less Zenzi is a way to explain. Now Salesforce has bought it. It's an IM tool. And it's built on a very interesting concept. There used to be something called IRC, Internet Relay Chat, in the 90s, and they took it and made it very modern and funky with channels and users and everything. Very similar to Discord. And now a simple application like Slack, when like someone messages you and you get a notification, it's a very simple thing, right? Like if you think, I got a message and then there is a notification. Look at how complex the flowchart is. So this is just a flowchart of how Slack decides if they should send a notification to you or not. Look at the amount of engineering and thought process that goes behind just sending one notification to a user. And it's pretty crazy that way. And now think about how there are so many different features working in tandem together. As a user, you will never think about this, but as an engineer, you definitely should. So yeah, questions before we move on to the next section. Raise of hand. Yeah, I see a question from Bhavansh.
Sir, you told us about the complexity someone should like understand before making a product or something. But as a fresher, like, should I go towards like solving those complexities, thinking about those complexity, or just like doing my job, which is like given and working around it?
So see, don't try to limit yourself saying as a fresher. The idea here is not to directly jump into complex things, but try to understand and appreciate how something super simple, right? In C or Python, like if I ask you to build a calculator, it will be fairly simple, right? Like, okay, let me just see. So if I can open not code.dev, what is VS Code.dev? Sorry, I was trying to open an IDE. So if you see this, sorry, can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So if I ask you, in very simple words, that man, just build a calculator for me, you will say, man, this is so simple. I will create like a add function a comma b, and I will say return a plus b, and then basically in very simple plain words, we'll just basically define 4 functions like add. Then there will be simple like subtract, where I will just say this becomes a minus b. Then there is like, you get the point, right? Mult. And then multiply will give us this. And then let's say there is a divide function, which will give us this. Now, this is a very simple example of, I don't need this. This is a very simple example. And then I will probably have some kind of a main function, which will like take an input from the user in terms of operation and whatever. I think I'm not going to write the whole code. And then there is something called, let's say, numbers. So a comma b, which will take like input comma input. And then we will do the operation in a way, and then we will return maybe using a switch case or something. And that qualifies for a basic calculator. But the problem is a calculator is not just that, right? All of you probably have scientific calculators. Now look at that and see that if you had to replicate that with code, it's not something that you can do it over a weekend. It's absolutely crazy. You have so many different things built over that. So the idea, what I'm saying is, as a fresher, you have to, whenever you look at a system, you can appreciate the complexity that goes behind it, and that complexity should cause curiosity to go and Google and understand and read how something works. Does that answer your question, Bhavansh?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So let's move on. We have 20 minutes. Building skills. So this is what like someone was also asking me a bit. How do you build skills? Again, in my opinion, I think I'm a little old school, but I have seen that it works. So one second. Yeah, so this has to be very overwhelming, right? Look at the amount of things that you can focus on. There is front end, there is back end, there is full stack, database, machine learning, data science, artificial intelligence, prompt engineering is a new thing, UI, UX, product, embedded IoT, cybersecurity, right? And I remember when I was in college, it was very overwhelming. I would basically look at all of these things and then try to figure out, what needs to be done. Let me fix this. Yeah. So my idea is, as like engineers, and I think the one thing you guys right now have is time, right? And there is no such thing as a real programmer, right? I have this comic that I really like. I don't know how readable it is. There's a very nice comic called XKCD. It's basically like made by a lot of nerds, and it's pretty good. So if you read this, these are all the tools. So Nano, real programmers use Emac, and then hey, real programmers use Vim, but no, real programmers use Ed. No, real programmers use Cat. And then someone is saying that real programmers use a magnetic needle and a steady hands, to flip the bits to 0 to 1. And then there is a whole explanation about how the butterfly effect is there and how high pressure and things happen. And then basically there is a cosmic ray that flips the desired bit again from 0 to 1, and then that's there. So the thing I want you to take away from this is that there is no such thing as a real programmer. You develop, we'll talk about how to build the skill set and master that, but you can focus on something that you really like and then try to go deep into it, right? And I'll prove that. There is a very interesting model that you guys can follow to build that muscle. But quick question now, how many of you here are a fan write code outside your subjects? So outside your college curriculum. So I see 1 hand, 2, 3, 8, 10. Yeah, now I think in peer pressure, everyone will raise their hands, but right, like who you are, right? I see around 20 hands out of 76 audience here. And see, this is very fascinating, right? And let me ask this question, another question to you all 20 people. Another raise of hands. How many of you actively push code to Git or any open source repo? And now I think some hands will start going down, right? Yeah, I see 5 or 6 hands there that are still there, right? I would love to hear about it. Yeah. So I think as freshers and engineers, one of the best things you can do, and they all work together. There is a again the butterfly effect kind of a thing, like it happened with me, right? Someone was asking, I did not know I'm going to get a job, because I was just contributing to the brackets. I used the product. I really like it. I saw that, hey, again, the curiosity, who built this product? Oh, Adobe did. Nice. Oh, is it open source? Yes. Oh, let me take a look at the code and how it works. And I got the repo. I cloned it on GitHub. And then I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. And let's look at some of the open issues that are there. And then, I tried to understand the code. It took me, I think, around a couple of months to just go through the code. And let me connect my charger. Yeah. And once I was through with that, I was like, okay, let's see if, I can do this. And I remember I raised one of the first PRs and I was brutally, humiliated by their engineers. They rejected the PR because my code was absolute shit and I did not follow any of the conventions. But then I asked them, how can I do better? And then they pointed me to a wiki, like this is a contribution guide and all. And I looked at that and I did that. I think that's a very good thing to just get your foot in the door if you basically want to escape the seal and try to differentiate yourself as engineers. And again, we'll talk further about that. But yeah, you see where I'm leading with this question, right? But still, I think for the rest of you who did not raise a hand, and I think everyone, let me give you a roadmap, right? That is now a big thing, right? Let me guide you, how you can, build those skills and improve that. Very simple roadmap. There is nothing fancy about it. I don't have any course to sell you. Not interested in making any money or something. I'm just here to help you. Simple thing. There are 3 aspects. There is backend, frontend, and databases. That's the core of everything. Anything that you require to build something. In backend, I want you to just pick one language, stick to it, read its internal, understand the complexity behind sugar of the syntax, and master it. No matter if it is PHP. I don't care. If it is Java, it is Python, it is Ruby, just pick it. And then be a little curious, right? Rather than just working on the abstraction, press your control key and press on something and go and look behind the library, right? Like when you press array.sort, open that sort function, try to understand, what sort is it using? Is it using bubble sort? Is it using quick sort? Is it using merge sort? Is it using linear sort? Is there a special strategy behind it, right? There is a heap queue, there is a queue, there is a linked list. Now, the problem is we all know the theory. We have all seen those diagrams of linked list with double linked list, singly linked list. We know the graphs and everything. But problem is when you start writing code, all of these libraries make it pretty simple. But the idea is you should try to be, again, curiosity is one of the things that will drive that. Open that and try to understand the internal. And that will help you become a better programmer. And the best part is, if we go back we are on slide 27, right? If you look at this, the most funniest part, I joined Adobe. I wrote C and C++. I joined Shuttle. I wrote Python. It was Python Django stack. I joined Synaptic. It was a Ruby on Rails app. I joined Uber. It was Golang, So there is a Uber FX framework, and I have never written Golang before. And now I'm in Atlassian. I'm back to Java and Kotlin land, and I've had no idea about what Kotlin is. I got in, but since I have very good fundamentals and I have worked over the years, it was very easy for me to just pick up a new language, because at the end, the core logic is going to remain exactly the same. But what matters is you should understand how it works, right? Don't use things blindly. Similarly, for front end, very important. Of course, there is basics with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. You should be familiarized with that, and simply just pick one framework and marry it. And JavaScript has this huge problem where everyone in every 2 weeks or 3 weeks come up with this new framework and hails it as this is the best thing since sliced bread and this is going to happen. You don't really need to know each and everything about React, Angular, Vue, Coffee.js, or whatever the next shiny thing is. Have strong base fundamentals. Maybe you just pick JavaScript vanilla. Don't even need to pick one framework at all, and then just go crazy with it. At the end, what all front end is at the end of the day is basically there is some interactive control, and when you click it or interact with it or scroll it or hover on it, there is some logic that is attached to it behind the scenes, and that is what JavaScript is doing. And CSS just makes it look nicer, right? I'm very over simplifying this. And even in JavaScript, there is multiple school of ways of writing this. There is ECMAScript, there is TypeScript, and these are things that are good to know what they are, but you don't really need to go crazy behind everything. Just pick your one thing, have very solid fundamentals, learn about how synchronous, asynchronous programming works in JavaScript. How do you not block your UI thread when something is rendering and still allow user to interact with elements? Again, these are questions that should come to your mind naturally once you start going deep. And the third thing is database, very crucial. A lot of times people just often skip it. They will just pick up something and then they will not care about it. Don't go behind AI, ML. It is not going to benefit you at all right now. Of course, there are certain tools which you can use to become more efficient. I'm not saying don't use ChatGPT. Absolutely. There is nothing better than ChatGPT as a co-pilot or a pair programmer, right? You can start digging into something and you can use it to ask questions. And you can even set prompts in a way that, hey, but don't give me the code. Act as one of my mentor who will basically try to give me hints so that I can get there. And it's very easy to do that, right? So in databases, pick one SQL database, no matter what it is, MariaDB, Postgres, MySQL, RDS, one NoSQL. NoSQL could be, again, anything. It can be Cassandra, MongoDB, like DynamoDB, whatever you want to do, maybe a time series database. And then again, absolutely fall in love with it. Go deep, try to understand everything there is, so that if you go in an interview and someone asks you, oh, you are building the database modeling, right? How fast is this? How does you will, if you have a shallow knowledge, you will just say, what, we will just create an index on this table and everything will work. But then like someone can double click and ask, how does index works in MySQL? And then like you're stumped, you don't know what to answer. And this is what I think is very important, trying to go again behind the scenes. What is database? Database is also nothing but like a bunch of syntax and a code layer on top of some of the basic functions that are happening, right? When you search something, you say select star from students where name is Jatin. What it is doing is it has stored that data in such a way that it is very easy for it to go and look it up. But if you start thinking about it, a simple select query can be very complex, where there is a pointer that is going row by row for each name column and trying to match that name to Jatin. And once it finds out, it returns it, right? It's just code, which you don't get to see because there is a way to interact with that language. And don't be that person who suggests MongoDB is web scale. I have attached a meme. I don't think we have time to play, but this is a very interesting video, very old video. This is from 13 years ago. Just search MongoDB is web scale on YouTube and like have fun at it. But yeah, don't be that person, right? You need to have very strong fundamentals, but then you need to appreciate the beauty of the other options that you have. And now, once you have these 3 domains, I want you to spend, and don't do it in next 1 month. Take like you have 2 years, 1 year, take one whole year. Perfect this on site, maybe just spend 30 minutes a day. Have your life, you're in college, right? Just don't become absolutely crazy about this. There has to be a balance with everything. So set some time, spend that. And once you have that, try to build like a product, right? And again, it can be a product, right? One product, single product. Again, don't have to just go crazy and then try to build everything and try to replicate everything. You just have to build one product and think like an engineer, right? And let me show you how. So I already showed you in a way. So think of this example that I gave it to you, right? It took me like 10 seconds to just make like a basic calculator. But let's say if I want you to build the absolute best calculator the world has ever seen, right? And I want you to spend 1 year doing that. There are so many facets. So if I open a whiteboard. 1 second. This should be fine. Or actually, let's just use text. So I don't want to, oops, sorry. Yeah, so let's look at this calculator example itself. The first thing you will absolutely write, the first ever thing is backend, where you will have your all of the product logic that resides there. Now the problem is the backend is very difficult to interact with, and you don't want your friends or everyone to always look at the CLI, right? Like the only way to interact with backend is either using CLI or either using like a sys input. Sys input is basically where you again you have a file where you give like a sequence of steps for it to follow. So once you do that, you're like, hey, so I have all the logic there. Now, how do I make it interactable? That's where your front end comes into the picture, where you will try to build like a user experience for that calculator and try to surface it and understand. Now that itself has so many rabbit holes and questions that you can, so many pitfalls that, okay, I now have a Java app running. How do I create a website like using HTML? And then when I press that plus button, how would that invoke this function? And once you start doing that, you will fall into all of the things with procedural call. There are REST APIs. There are so many different ways of invoking the backend. And once you understand how to link those together, now there can be more requirements, right? I have all of this information, but I want to preserve history for my user. Now the problem is whenever you want to persist something, you will have to need to learn about storage. And for storage, we use something called databases. And in databases, and then there is another problem, like who should interact with database? Should my front end interact with database or should my backend interact with database? And then that's another rabbit hole where you can start to search about it, start to understand about it, like how does it work? And like a simple query like front end, back end, database, architecture will basically give us that, right? Like where there is simple data flow example where, okay, this is going to open that. Let's take this image where you can clearly see that this is a very interesting flow where we have a user which is using HTML and CSS to create like a website, and then there is a business logic which is the code. It can be in, again, Python, Java, whatever, and then there is a database which is trying to persist the data. Then how do you build something like that? And once you develop this product kind of an understanding, let's close this, let's move back. Yeah, so once you develop this product kind of understanding, then there is another layer to it, right? Like which is the mastering layer. So let's say if I am able to understand like how I can persist it in MySQL, and then maybe I can know like how I can persist like a user and how I can persist like maybe calculations for this user. Now I have some kind of a product. Now the problem is this product can only run in your machine. Now there is a second layer of it, like how do you share it with a friend, right? And this itself is another layer of complexity where now you are going to delve into all the different types of hosting. How can I basically host it on a server? And then how can I make it public? And making a server public has its own problems because you have to think about a lot of security. So then maybe you will think about authentication. And the thing is, if you think about authentication, you will have to come back here, and in the user, you will probably have to have some kind of a whitelisting or maybe some kind of a password auth or something like that. And every time you mess up with one layer, like if you add a whitelisting and auth here, then you will have to come back to front end, and then you will have to build a user experience here. So how would you do that? So basically, you will have to build a user experience. But when you do front end, your front end cannot directly talk to your database. So now you will have to come to your back end, and you'll have to build like an auth service behind the scenes, right? So you see the point, right? We started with a very simple 10 lines of a calculator, and by spending enough time and trying to make it a little bit more complex and a whole product, we can see there are so many different facets that you have to touch. So yeah, that's the end of second part. Like any questions till now? And I hope I'm adding some value here because, but yeah, any questions, yes, folks? Yeah, I see a lot of thumbs up and claps. Okay, Prateek Agrawal, you have a question. You are on mute, Prateek. Yeah.
Sir, I want to ask, is it okay to learn from the official websites of the like JavaScript? I learned from MD and WebDocs. So is it okay to learn directly from the official website?
Definitely, man. Like I personally feel you should not pay for anything at all. Like in 2024, everything is available for free. Like if you want to buy books, be my guest, buy a book if you're that person. But like all it requires is like a simple Google search, and like you can absolutely learn anything from anywhere. Like you go on YouTube, there are so many playlists to pick up something and do that. I basically supplement my learning from everywhere. If I want to read a blog, I read a blog. If I want to, so I just got this really nice book called Algorithms to, I don't know if you can see this,
Yeah,
Algorithms to
yeah.
Live By. So yeah, sometimes I read a book, sometimes I watch YouTube videos, sometimes I read a blog post, sometimes I go into your, like you're saying, the documentation. So Java doc is really nice. There is a Golang official doc that is really nice. Python has a very good stdio and community. Stack Overflow was a thing. I even heavily use Bard and ChatGPT also, because ChatGPT can. Why should I go on Google and try to find the best resource when like AI can do it for me, right? So it's all about supplementing your information and knowledge, no matter wherever you get it from.
Okay, okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, there's one more question. Tane Kumar. Can someone unmute Tane? I think there is some. Okay, Tane, you can unmute yourself now. Yeah.
Am I audible, sir?
Yes, you're audible. Tell me.
So I'm currently a full stack web developer. And what are
Mhm.
some projects that you would recommend that would help us stand out of the crowd? Because even I have made the generic course seller app and to-do list app. But what is something that you'd recommend that looks a bit different on my resume?
See, but what is your goal? Is the goal to basically make a product that will make money for you? Is the goal to just add something to your portfolio which will look really impressive? Or is your goal
Make
to
something that makes
network
sense.
and get noticed? Get noticed. I think it heavily depends on that, like what you want to drive out of it, right? No matter how generic your to-doist app is, like go to Crunchbase or go to Google and ask like which to-doist app raised around recently. It is absolutely crazy. I've been doing this from 10, 20 years. And every few years, you will see this one new productivity app that will hail itself as the silver bullet. And then it will do something and raise a lot of money. And again, like as I showed, like a calculator, like a to-doist app itself has so much complexity that you can do. Like you're calling it generic, right? But what is the way to make it very less, not generic at all, right? So either you can think in that direction and where you can build a whole product, or the second way is to contribute to something that is there, which is already there, right? So as a full stack developer, you can look into some of the frameworks, you can look into some of the open source services that are there and try to contribute into that.
All right, sir, I'll do that. Thank you.
Okay. Always. So let's move on. I think we are running a little late. So this is a very important section, right? Now you have built some skills, right? You followed the roadmap, a very simple roadmap. I don't have anything fancy to sell or whatever. There is no snake oil. How do you master those skills now? This is fairly important, right? And yeah, so you have now acquired skills in 3 streams. It's time to master them, right? So let me ask you guys, first of all, like based on how attentive you were and how you were listening, how do you think we can master our skills? So we'll take 2 answers since we are running a little late. Any raise of hands?
So maybe by building more and more projects.
Yeah, so one way is to basically have some volume and build more projects. Let's see another. Who raised the hand? Sorry, Pratik.
By practicing our skills continuously in the projects and other things like hackathons.
Exactly. See, yeah, there is. Oh, very good answer. Actually, there is no substitute to just go and do it, right? You can spend, you can be that topper who get gold medals from IB University in their Dwarka main campus every year by just, again, no offense to any toppers here or whatever, but you can be that person. But then, see, practical knowledge is very important, right? Theoretically, I know assembly also, right? But if you ask me to write some assembly code right now, I cannot do it. It's not, that's not something I'm really good at, right? But Python is something or Java is something that I can really do. So one is good continuous practice. And any answer, raise of hands. No? Anyone? Okay.
Mm. By open source also, by
Yeah. So yeah,
contributing open.
we yeah, we talked about that also. Yeah, that's actually a very, very good way. I would urge you, every one of you, to just go and look at one of your favorite softwares, which is open source. Redis is open source, right? Redis has a really one of the most beautiful codes I have ever seen. Go to GitHub, find Redis repo. Redis is one of the caching services which allows you to cache data between your front end and back end, so that you can quickly retrieve it without hitting a DB and reading that. If you go and look into that, you will probably learn a thing or two. How does it work? How does it store things? How does it retrieve it so fast? How does it work so quickly? Is it just going to run in memory or not, like that? And that helps. Let me tell you. The answer is pretty simple, right? Uh, there is no substitute of to grinding, right? You need to write a lot of code. You need to debug. You need to understand how to scale it, and you need to repeat, right? There is absolutely no silver bullet to it. I don't think there is any shortcuts to it. You will have to do it. And the idea is, the more you write code, the better you get at looking at patterns, right? There is a reason, there is a lot of fascination towards lead code, right? I love lead code. I have grinded lead code so many times in different times of my life. I still try to solve the problems here and there, because the thing is, once you solve enough questions, right? Like, even if you target just easy and medium questions, and let's say you solve 50 questions each, after that, whenever you see a question, you can quickly understand the English, and you can quickly tell, oh, but behind the scenes, this will use a dynamic programming where, we'll have to maybe do a recursion and end it a little early, or maybe this is an iterative approach, or maybe this uses like a graph. This uses a pathfinding algorithm, or DFS is the correct approach. So you start to see those patterns, and those patterns really help you to solidify your neural connections in your brain to have very clear understanding of it. And then this is very, very important. I still follow it as a principal engineer in Atlassian. I believe this is how you should develop your skill. I think this is one of the most important part of the slides. A little premature for you, since you folks are in first and second years and not working. But if someone would have shared with me this in my first, second years, I think I would have been doing really well, even better, right? You should always look at developing your models in this way. So this is called a T-shaped model design, where you need to have a breadth. So the first thing that we did in the phase 3, where we were talking about backend, front end, and database, we were trying to build the upper part of T, which is the broad skills, right? Once you do that and you find something that really interests you, you should try to go deep in one of the things, right? Have some expertise, and that will also help you understand when you go for your placements, like, what do you want to do? Do you want to be a database administrator? Do you want to be a UI designer, UX designer? You want to be a backend person, front end person? Like, what do you want to do? Or you can then be a full stack also, which is also pretty good, right? Like, it depends on how you want to do. And then as you grow in your career, you have to develop this T, and this is especially important for you folks, because by the time you guys join industry, the industry will look very different, right? Looking at the advancement of AI and how dangerously good code it can write, writing code itself would not be just something that companies would look towards. It would be mostly working with these AIs to understand how to do that. So it will really help to have like a pie kind of a structure, right? Where now you have the broad skill set, but now you have deep expertise in 2 disciplines, right? And it's really good to build that discipline slowly. Again, it's not something you will build it over next 3 months or something. It will take years, maybe next couple of years or 3 years, you can spend time building that. And what that will allow you to do is, it will allow you to transfer to something called a versatilist approach, where after you develop deep expertise in 2 areas, you will become so good at it that you can now try to ground in all the skills, and it will merge towards like a V-shape where you are developing several others. So, right, like as you're going, you're developing your databases, back and front end, and you're really getting good at it. And that's very important for like 5 to 10 years of experience, because even if you talk to me as a principal engineer, I at given time, I'm working with 7 to 8 projects in Atlassian, and I'm playing a very different role everywhere. In some places, I'm working as a tech lead, where I'm just leading a team of 10 people to build like some feature service. Somewhere I'm a deep engineer, where I'm investigating the internals of our system. How can we make this API faster? How can we make DB faster? How can we reduce our cloud costs? And then there can be another way where I'm just going in and just writing code myself, where I'm just executing that, right? And what's beyond this pie model, right? Like, someone may ask, does this model work? This is a comp shape model. No, it doesn't work. It will never work, right? It's very difficult for you unless you are absolutely genius with an IQ of 160 above. You can do this. But in next 4 to 5 years, your goal should be to become something like this. This is like a star-shaped person, where instead of just trying to think and restrict yourself on an X and Y axis, you're trying to grow everywhere slow and slow. So this is like a technical extension of the V-shaped model, where you know some of web programming, you know web design, you know design thinking. There is some influence because social skills are very important. You need to be really good at getting up on a stage and talk, right, without any stage fear. I used to be so bad at it. I remember in college, it was such a big fear, right? Whenever there used to be something to do that. But I really enjoyed quizzing, so I had no option like but to do this, right? But yeah, so project planning, data modeling, and application architecture. So you need to divide your analytical and creative brain into two parts, and then try to grow all over. And this is a lot to take in. You have to emphasize on that. This is something that will take like few years to develop. But it's very good to have like a direction to think, like what do you want to do with your skill set. Yeah, questions, I think. Actually, let's not take questions right now. I will take questions. I just have 4 more slides, and then we'll have spent some 5 minutes taking questions, right? So now comes the question of, yeah, you have done all of this, Jatin, like you told us, and you know now we have a very good fundamentals, and I can tell you the difference between merge sort and like binary sort, or maybe like which is faster, A star, etc. Looking at a question, I can tell what is the way to go. How do you do that? And here are some tips, highly biased because there is a survivorship bias, but it has worked for over 100 plus people I have coached and guided over last 10 years, including some friends, family, and like some juniors. And it may work for you as well, right? One of the most important thing is continuous learning, right? Stay sharp and stay relevant, right? The example I was giving, right? Don't think AI as your enemy, right? What if you should look at your AI as one of your free pair programmers who can help you do that, and you can look into how to basically have some really good prompts and to make it in a way that it can become your learning partner, and you can spar ideas, you can ask questions, right? You know, you can ask very stupid questions also, and no one is going to judge you, right? Like why are we not using boho sort everywhere? If you guys don't know what boho sort is, you should go and take a look at this. It's again a meme sort, BOGO sort. But continuous learning is very important. The second good pillar is open source. You have to look into it, you have to do it. And the best part is it will teach you so much about how software is written in real world, right? I gave you an example of Redis, right? So if you, this is the beauty of internet. Everything is just like like 10 seconds away, and you can just open this, and here we are. We can see this. Most of the code is written in C and Python, and then I can just basically go into the source code of this. And a very cool tip, like whenever you are in any GitHub repository, if you press the dot key, it basically, okay, it doesn't do it anymore. It used to do it. Okay, I think they patched it or something. I think I can just do .dev. No, okay, there was a way to directly open this in GitHub code. I don't know if they patched it or something, but yeah, you can just open this and you can get into the code base. Oh, because I'm not logged in, probably that's why. And then you can look into what are the different commands they have. How do you basically set a user? And then there is some JSON code here. And if you look into the modules, so a lot of code is written in C. Like what are the CLI commands? Like the header files that when we learn C, we just include, right? Include stdio.h. What is that .h file, right? So you can go ahead and look into this, like what are the different structs in this. And then you can go into the issues and see like there are 2000 issues that are open. And some of them will be very difficult and not something that you can directly do, but some of them will be very trivial also, where you can start to basically take that and you can just fork this repo and you can raise like a pull request against this. And again, what is a fork? What is pull request? Again, something that you can Google and build that muscle. So it's basically a continuous learning and exploration. And the third very critical step is network. This helped me a lot, honestly. There used to be something called Microsoft Student Partner. It was a thing. I don't know. Is it still a thing? When I was in a college, that used to be a thing. I think the name has changed, but the idea is like Microsoft or someone, they used to pick some students from different colleges. You had to apply for them, and then they will basically, you became their evangelist. You get some access to some of the things and blah, blah, blah. But there are some events where you can go and network. But nowadays it's so easy, right? I recently presented, so there is, shit. One second. So I recently presented in, I have some slides here, I think. Yeah, I recently presented in FOSS United Delhi. So that's one good community where you can go. There is a FOSSConf, there is GDG, that Google DevFest that keep happening. I think places like this, if you go there and you try to meet people, They will really help you to, again, meet some more like-minded people, ask them what they are doing and how things are happening. I think there are some questions. Tane, Chandan? Okay, no. Yeah, I think we'll do questions, right? So networking is fairly important to do. And the portfolio thing is optional. I opened my website by like just to show the talks. I just built it like 1 month back. It took me 10 years to do it. So honestly, it's optional. Just don't focus too much on it. If you can build something, it's pretty good. You can take it as a project and understand how to build a static website that you can deploy on GitHub for free, and you don't have to pay for anything. Strictly optional. But I think a good LinkedIn profile or a GitHub profile helps, because you need to let people know how they can reach out to you, right? So if you have a GitHub profile, just go and update it and ensure that there is a way for people to reach out to you. Because once you start contributing to open source, trust me, a lot of people will just reach out to you and do that. And it helps building those relationships. And also LinkedIn, you should try to get onto. LinkedIn is also pretty good, where you can reach out to some of your seniors from your universities or from your alumni, who can also help you understand, what are the industry trends and how things are happening. Try to build that relationship. It's not easy. It'll require a lot of effort, but it's absolutely worth it. And yeah, just write code. I think there is no substitute for that. And I added one last minute slide because I was talking to my wife, and I think that is very important. I remember being in college. Might sound very cliche. Again, I'm not your I'm not your doctor or your dad or something, but you need to really focus on your health also. Like in this industry, software industry, a lot of people neglect on their health so much, and that's very. Look at me. I'm currently standing. I have invested in a sit-stand desk, like just last year, but because we just sit, work, and write code, like there is so many problems from carpal tunnel to your back to your neck that will happen. And a lot of people take it for granted. Like 20s are completely bulletproof. You feel like nothing is going to happen, but trust me, as you grow old, it will cause a problem. And one of the best ways to stay on top of your career is to become healthy. If you're healthy, your brain will work very well, and then it's very easy to acquire skills. So something, I think I put it in the last moment, but something you guys should definitely focus on. And yeah, that's a wrap. I think we have spent over completely 1 hour and 1 minute, but questions if we have time. And yeah, meanwhile, if someone wants to connect with me, I am Jatin K Malik everywhere, but you can scan this. I usually am very active on Twitter. I'm trying to build an audience there. You can reach out to me. My DMs are open, and I can try to get back to you. Yeah, meanwhile, if anyone has any questions, please raise your hands. I think Chandan hand is raised. Yes, Chandan. Someone needs to unmute Chandan, I think. Chandan Sahu. Okay, Chandan, you can unmute yourself. Yeah.
Hello, sir. Hello, sir.
Hello. Yeah. Yes.
So
Tell me.
I'm a first year student. So I'm currently practicing WebD. If in certain point of life, if I want to switch, like if I want to add a stack, so what should be like Web3 or ML?
Sorry, I cannot hear you. Your voice is echoing a lot. Can you repeat yourself?
So I am saying, I am first year student. I'm currently practicing WebD. If in certain point of life, WebD.
Oh, okay. Web3. Huh.
WebD.
Oh, WebD. Okay, got it. Yeah.
If I want to add a stack in certain point of life, so what should be like MLAI or Web3?
Man, it depends what interests you. I think again.
There is a common answer. I want something like a biased one, like what's your preference?
See, my idea would be, again, it's very biased. I am invested in crypto. I was very excited about crypto and whole Web3. Had a lot of friends who left their jobs and then went to Y Combinator, raised some funding, and tried doing the startups. But when this whole AI wave came, that everyone pivoted to AI. If you ask me in terms of generalization, Web3 does has a space. It might change something, but the problem is when you are swimming against the tide, it's very difficult. Probably Web3 will become very revolutionary by end of the decade, but that's an uncertainty. Like if you ask me if you should study about Web3 or AI, I would definitely say like learn about AI, learn about LLMs, how they are built, how they are trained. Maybe go to Hugging Face. There is a website and try to see if you can train a model, fine tune it yourself. I think that is a much better skill to acquire. But again, see, the thing is that V-shaped model that we talked about, right? This model,
Yes, sir.
it would not hurt you to have understanding about how blockchains work, how cryptography works, what is a proof of stake, what is a proof of work, what does the zero, there is something ZK, how does that work? It would be good. But if I have to bet spending time in terms of career oriented, I would currently bet on AI because I'm biased towards it. And that is something that is a rage for now. And a lot of people are building things in that.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Any other questions? Kunal? I think there is Kunal, there is Utsav. So let's first take Kunal.
Oh, sir, I'm audible now.
Yes, Kunal, I can hear you.
Sir, are you really happy with your job or whatever are you doing in life as a software engineer? To be honest.
That's a very philosophical question. Absolutely. I think this is exactly what I dreamt of when I was in college. So I clearly remember when I was in college, I have always loved computers. I think I was in fourth or fifth class when I first saw like a computer at one of my uncle's place, and I was absolutely fascinated by it. And I come from a engineering family in a way because my dad was a electrical engineer. So my house, I had a huge interest in IoT. I still do. So my house will always have like solder irons and those things lying around. And whenever something will go bad, my dad will just take a screwdriver and will open it, and I will sit. So I always had this curious interest about behind the things, right? Okay, this is a telephone, you press buttons and it works, but how does it work? Like when I press button, what happens? How does I get like audio from the speaker? I'm talking about the old handheld landline. I'm an old guy, but how does that work, right? And that curiosity, I think, transferred to software engineering also. So when I was in college, I had a map of Silicon Valley in my study room behind the scenes. And yeah, I'm absolutely very happy. I'm very passionate about software engineering, and this is why I'm still individual contributor. So it's very common for software engineers to move into engineering manager and management. So there are two ladders, I think, that gets available to you after 5 or 6 years of experience. I have completed 10, I'm in 11th year, and I have decided to stay as an engineer because I really love it. But that's again a personal preference. Yeah. I hope that answers your question.
Great to know, sir. Thank you.
Okay, Utsav. I think Utsav, you need to unmute, folks.
Yeah, hi, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, Utsav, I can hear you.
Yeah, I want to know like we should do lead code or code forces because I guess companies like Atlassian and Google go in deep more of competitive programming. So what should we do?
You should do both. What is stopping you? I think again the problem is there is no right answer to that, right? Like if you want to be very tactical and strategic, I would say see lead code has a way where they tap questions on companies and you would know what a company is going to ask. But the problem is I take a lot of interviews. I take 2 interviews per week, right? Even if you know the question, like I'm in that way, an experienced interviewer can still turn around, change the requirement a little bit and can understand the pitfalls. So I see use whatever that helps you to build your core fundamentals and understanding of a system. That is very, very important in my opinion. So use whatever is there, right? And yeah, that should help. I hope that answers your question. What's up?
Yeah, thanks, sir.
Okay. Any other questions, folks?
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, and a special thanks to Mr. Jatin for sharing his valuable information on the topic web development. I hope this info will help the students to seek out new challenges and pushing the boundary of what they can. Remember that success is not just about winning competition, but about the journey of growth and improvement that comes with it. I have a very special announcement for all of you present here. The closing ceremony of TechXcelerate 2.0 will be held at the Microsoft Office, Gurugram, on 28 January at 11 a.m. onwards. Selected students get the opportunity to attend it. One more announcement. Mark your calendar for March 3rd week, that is 16th and 17th March. Something very special, and you are a part of it. And guess what? There are cool prizes, not just for the champs, but for everyone. Details coming your way soon. The prize pool is more than 50,000 with super cool goodies and swags. So get excited and buckle up to be a part of Hack Hazards, more than a hackathon in which you will explore, create, innovate, and win. With that being said, now it's time to wrap up this session. It was really good to see your enthusiasm and passion till the end.